All right. And 3, 2, and 1. All right. Welcome back to the Educators Podcast. I'm your host, Alejandro Gutierrez, aka Alex. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to go by now. But, anyways, as usual, I have a cool guest, and this time we're going to be in Oregon. So, virtually, we're going to be in Oregon. So, go introduce yourself, my man.
What's up, everybody? Yeah, this is Sanchez Carrasco, one of the 10 Mexicans in Oregon. So thanks for having me on, Alex. Really appreciate it. And, before we get started, just thank you for being a teacher. Thank you for all the educators out there who listen to this in California and Oregon, everywhere. I think this pandemic's really showed like the importance of you guys and what you guys go through. And I know I got teachers I got cousins and family who are educators. I got friends who are educators. So, just a quick appreciation, shout out to you guys as well.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. I've been to Oregon a couple of times. I went to Ashland, Oregon in middle school for the Shakespearean Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we went out for that. We stayed at Southern Oregon University. We stayed there like on the dorm. We thought it was the coolest thing ever. For a week, we stayed in the dorms and got to watch like these Shakespearean plays. And
yeah, Shakespeare Festival up there.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then what else did I go to Oregon for? I think that was about it. But I've been meaning to go to Portland to check out some different things. But I mean, I appreciate you coming on there, man. I really do. We connected on Twitter. And I just saw obviously that you're into soccer, you're into Liga Mexicana and different things like that. So we kind of obviously had something in common. And I saw that you were into journalism and you've even been on TV or been able to be interviewed. So I was like, hey, let's talk to you about that journey and what you're doing nowadays. So if you want to just, I don't know, maybe talk about a little bit about your schooling. And I am a teacher, like you said. I do appreciate you shouting out the teachers. It is a rough time for everybody. I think we're close to going back to school, but it's definitely been, by the time this podcast episode is published, it's going to be over a year at home. So that is some wild stuff. We got sent home on a Thursday in March, the second week of March, and it's about to be that day pretty soon. So I do appreciate you shouting out the teachers. But yeah, let's talk about school a little bit. Get us there first. Kind of talk about your schooling experience and kind of where that took you.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Corvallis, Oregon, which is kind of in the middle of Oregon in the valley, the part of Oregon, and actually it's a college town. So Oregon State University is located there. So without the university, it's about 40,000 people. So it's not too big, but it's kind of like a regular town. And then with the university, I bet now it's almost probably double with when you count all the administrators and the students and stuff. So I grew up and went to school there all throughout elementary school, high school, and middle school as well. And then in college, I went to a couple colleges, universities, but I finished up went to Portland State University here in Portland, that's where I kind of decided to really focus, kind of get out of Corvallis and grow up a little bit. And yeah, Portland State University, the last university or school I attended.
Nice. So, I mean, I don't know much about Oregon. Like you said, I never heard of some of these places, but obviously all we know is Oregon Ducks. We know the Beavers, obviously, like you say, Oregon State. I mean, we know obviously the Blazers. I know you're a big Blazers fan. You have your hat on right now. So we know the Blazers, Rip City, right? We know the the Timbers and all that. So how'd you get into like this journalism thing that you were doing, the Chicano soccer thoughts and all that? Kind of tell me about that.
Yeah, well, after I stopped playing, and I played pretty competitively, and after I stopped, I started find a way to continue to be involved and continue to just kind of express my thoughts. When you're always with a group, like whether it's teammates or uncles and stuff, cousins, there's just dialect that's continually happening over soccer. And I figured I would just start a blog and just express my thoughts about it, express what I thought, my opinions and my predictions of how I thought things should go, things would go. And so I just thought Chicano Soccer Thoughts was a catchy little blog title, so I went with that. And after a little bit, a publication, like an online website called Vavel, VAVEL, reached out to me, and I started writing about the Mexican national team for them, and had gained some experience through there. And then when you mentioned the part about the little thing on TV, I got reached out by a program out in Europe, over in Turkey and stuff, and they hit me up on Twitter, the way we kind of connected. And it was late at night, and it was late at night here, so it was early morning over there. They're like, hey, we got it was about when Mexico and United States got the joint bid for the World Cup along with Canada, and just kind of the thoughts that happened through there. Because at the time, I think there wasn't as much excitement in Mexico because of the amount of games they got,
Yeah.
and the
10.
amount, yeah, 10 games they got from it, and just kind of the feeling towards that, especially because when you look at Mexico's already hosted 2 World Cups. They've the 70 and 86, they've both been really successful. I think they probably could, I mean, they have the infrastructure to host another one as well.
Easily.
Even by themselves, just the way the US can. And so that was the main topic about that. But interesting story that day. I'm getting ready to do the interview and I'm prepared and everything.
Yeah.
And about half an hour before, the bus bombing of the Dortmund game happened. I think it was Dortmund Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
That.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it happened about half an hour before I was supposed to go on. And so I was supposed to lead off the show. And instead, I got pushed back because of this. And, it's happening, like something serious is happening. And so then the show starts off with that. And I get pushed to the end, but get about 5 minutes instead of what was supposed to happen, which was a very interesting experience, especially for the first time. And, you have all these things in your mind of how things are going to go. And then this gets thrown at you. I thought it was it's an interest. Like, luckily nobody was injured, I believe. So it comes out to be a more interesting story and definitely much easier to talk about it now, considering what could have been the damages and what turned out to be the damages of it. But yeah, that was what we talked about. And then the frustration of the Mexican Federation, or how some of the pundits, the frustration they had of what the Mexican Federation didn't fight for when it came to the amount of games for the World Cup that's happening in 5 years.
Yeah, so I can hear my feedback. I can hear my feedback.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening. I haven't touched anything.
I don't know. You could do it on your phone too. Everything else is cool though. Maybe we can keep that for sure. You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Is it still?
Hello? No.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay, I don't hear my feedback anymore.
All right, cool. I think.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Is there feedback?
No.
All right, cool. I think
I'm cool. Okay, either way, it's fine. We just I cut this anyway. Don't even worry. Yeah. So a lot of things you said right there. You being on TV. Do you find that one of your like highlights? Is that something that you were striving for to somehow go into something like that with your career? Because obviously a blog thing is something that a lot of people were doing. It was very popular before. Now we've gone into this video thing, right? I think podcast is now like the new blog, right? Where people just like, I'm just going to talk, right? Because I found that like I want to express my ways too, like you said with Chicano soccer. I thought about that. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like I do like to just talk about soccer, even if my wife gets tired of me talking about it. Someone else has to hear me. Like somebody hear me, right? So it's like, do you find that as was that one of your like highlights for it? Was that like the end goal, or you still want to keep doing that? Is this something you want to continue with your journalism and talking about what you're passionate about?
It's still something I definitely want to do, and it was a really cool experience. I think I definitely learned a lot, and it was just something that like next time an opportunity like that arises, it's definitely something to learn from and think like small little things that you learn. I look back and it's interesting because you could tell I'm just so nervous. So and that's just something that comes with practice. But I enjoyed it, and I think it was a really cool experience. What I really enjoyed more. And the thing I really liked was the last year and a half, I've been able to cover the Timbers here in Portland with a publication called Stoppage Time. And they've allowed me to get in there and like meet the players and just build a relationship with, and just be like there at the games and do something in a professional manner that way. And I think I've enjoyed that a little bit more because there's more an authenticity to it. And there's definitely, especially before the pandemic happened, you come in nervous for the first time, and then you get second time you get more comfortable. And it's just like anything, right? Anything, whether it's speaking, whether it's math, whatever writing, whatever the thing may be, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, the more relaxed you get. Correct. And then the better you start picking up little things that help you improve in the long way. So I really enjoyed that. And the other thing that what I really liked about covering the Timbers games were last year they had the most Latino players on the team, and I was the only person there who spoke Spanish consistently,
Mm.
and you recognize the people, you recognize the people from the newspapers, the other people who are there all the times you're there, and they were all great, but none of them spoke Spanish. So I think I was able to also talk to players that they wouldn't want, that they couldn't talk to, and then just ask players questions that maybe I didn't want people to know in English. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
try to get better access and just try to make them feel more comfortable. If English isn't their strongest language, to know like, hey, we can have a conversation, on the record or off the record. We can have a conversation and we can speak in a way that you're more comfortable and in a way that I'm comfortable of communicating as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's helped a lot. Those helped a lot, the relationships. Also with the coach, the Giovanni, he's from Venezuela, and when we would go into the press conferences after the games and talk, he would, you ask the questions, and I'd make sure just to ask in Spanish, because I thought it'd be important to, one, to be able to talk to him in Spanish, and two, if in case you want to say something, or in case I want to get information or something out of it, I could say in a language that a lot of people there didn't speak, or just made it
Yeah.
like a little easier, just kind of build something different, so something that he would recognize as different, and then you do it over and over, and then he recognizes you, and you kind of build a professional relationship like that. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the atmosphere, especially because Timbers games did get really do get wild, do get great. It's a really beautiful atmosphere, and it's stadiums in the middle of the city, and it's just, it was really cool to just kind of be able to do that in a professional manner, and especially do it over and over again.
That's cool, man. And I bet you were able to build relationships with these, like you said, with these players, because they feel comfortable. Like, I could talk to this guy because, like you said, you could say something that maybe they just, they want to feel comfortable. They want to feel at home, right? Some of them are thousands of miles from their home or wherever they are, that they're coming from Argentina or whatever, they're coming from Peru, Mexico. So obviously, like, if you're able to talk to them, you're able to build that relationship, and you're able to show us that bilingualism is a huge thing. It's something that, I don't know if you know, but I'm a Spanish teacher. So to hear this, it's like, here we go. I'm gonna use this clip, and share it with my class, because, a lot of my students are, the whole time, I think a teacher, what we're trying to do is sell it to them, right? We're trying to sell this to them, like, hey, Spanish is important, because you could use it later on, and so a lot of kids are looking at you like, why would I need to learn Spanish? And it's like, bro, there's opportunities for you if you know more than one language, and a lot of kids in my class might already have a second language, another home language they might know already. But it's like, hey, if you're in California or you're in certain parts of the United States, your Spanish is definitely going to help you. And, I'm glad that you're able to share that story, because I didn't think about that. These players could obviously feel more comfortable talking to you or build that relationship with you. And obviously that journalism is building relationships, right, with these players, right? So that they have, you kind of, like you say, you can have access with them, right? So you're able to ask them things. I mean, so you've been in a press room before, right? You've been in one of those conference rooms, and like, you're raising your hand trying to talk. And how was that experience?
Yeah, so it's a really good point you make about the Spanish speaking. And before I answer your question, the point you make I think is really important, and I think we all kind of go through this as, maybe first generation, second generation Latinos in the United States, of kind of finding that balance of speaking Spanish and not speaking Spanish growing up, especially if you live in a speaking Spanish household, and then you go out, when you're out of your house, and maybe you're in an English speaking culture. It's hard, and it's something that I struggled with growing up, and I think it's something that a lot of kids struggle growing up, and you kind of think you're alone for it. And then when you go hang out with your cousins or your aunt and uncles, at times, I know in Mexican culture, they'll make fun of you a little bit for not being able to speak Spanish a little bit as well as they would hope, and then that's going to discourage the kid to do it, and then he doesn't want to do it again or something like that. But my parents, I was lucky. My parents, like, even when at times I might have not wanted to, they really enforced it and really like hammered it home. And I thought that was important for me for that reason.
Okay.
And I think sports was also a big influence of that as well. Watching soccer in Spanish, and just wanting to interact with that aspect of it was important to speak Spanish. I think when you can find the connection to the country of origin where you're from, that's going to make things a lot easier to want to speak it. And I think that was important to me for speaking Spanish.
Okay. So I mean, sorry, we'll just go with it. It's fine. It's perfect. Because I'm having that thing right now. Right, my son only speaks Spanish. Right, my son. My wife is also first generation. Her parents are from Mexico, just like mine. And So, in California, it's a big thing. I don't know about Oregon. I don't know the demographics of Oregon, so you can kind of talk to me about that in a second. But, with my son, we just made we made an agreement, we're just going to only speak Spanish to him. He's at 4 already, and all he does is speak Spanish. He does know English because he'll pick it up from school or he'll pick it up from, TV or whatever. But the other day it was funny because he went to his first like soccer training, and the coach is like trying to talk to him in English, and my son's responding in Spanish, and I'm just far away, just like I didn't want to butt in. I didn't want to be that dad, so I just kind of let him do his thing. And the coach came running over, and he's like, "Hey, I was wondering what your son's name is again." I'm like, "Oh, his name's Lucas." He's like, "Oh, okay." I kept calling him Ethan, and he kept telling me "Soy Lucas," So it was pretty funny though, the interaction there. But kind of tell me, man, how was that in Oregon? I know your family's from Jalisco, right? So can you kind of tell me a little bit of the demographics, where you were from as far as growing up, and how common it is to speak Spanish, and then what kind of Latinos are there in where you're from, where you're living at?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned I have a nephew that's 4, and my brother and my sister-in-law have done something similar where they only speak Spanish to him, and my parents as well, and I do as well. When I see them, it's only speak Spanish. And like similar to what sounds like your son, now that he's in school a little bit, he's picking up English, and he picks it up picks up so rapidly.
Heck yeah.
Probably because he's making the connection to Spanish, and it's allowing him to speak English faster. But it's something similar to that. I like that connection where it's like they're speaking all Spanish at home because they're going to pick up English really quickly in school. What it seems like that's the experience I've.
Well, that was my experience. That was my situation too. That was my thing too.
Same, but yeah, in Corvallis. So my dad moved and settled in Corvallis in around like '88 before I was born, and my brother was born. And from growing up, there weren't a lot of Hispanic. There weren't a lot of Mexican kids. It's mostly Mexican in Corvallis, mostly Mexican. In Portland too, it's a lot of Mexican, and there's not a lot in Corvallis. There was not a lot, but there was a decent amount. There was a Spanish only mass, because there was enough community for that.
Okay, yeah.
Growing up, I was doing the ESL classes, the English second language, and about by the 4th grade, I was out of those classes, and they put me just the right, I just went on like a regular student, except for, I don't know if they had this in California, but in Oregon, at the end of every year, we had to take a test, and it was the exact same test at the end of every year, like from 1st grade to when I was a senior. It was the same test that they just tested you on.
Whoa.
Yeah, and they would do like word associations, they would do picture associations, they would do like finish a sentence, they would all these different things, and it was the same test. But yeah, there was a decent amount of Mexicans in where I grew up, and it was funny because, now I look back and it's funny, but I think growing up it really probably affects the way I saw the world and the way I saw myself. It was the Mexican said I was white because I wasn't in the ESL classes with them, and probably a lot of my friends growing up weren't like Mexican. They were like a mix of whatever, whether they're white, black, or Asian or Mexican. It was just a mixture of that. But growing up, you're getting pointed. They're still, while the Mexicans thought I was white, everybody else pointed out that I was Mexican.
Right.
But so then you get called like whitewashed or whatnot. And then when we would go to like quinceañeras or like bautismos, or I go to like that with my cousins and like other parts of parts of California and Arizona, I get called like white. They say like all the whitewash and stuff because of like my vernacular and the way I spoke English, or compared to like what they were used to. Just because I think in Oregon there hasn't been this like decade long embedment of like Chicano culture, like the way there is in like Los Angeles or other parts of or California. Or
all California. Yeah.
So I think there was a little bit of that, and growing up, I think it's something that like affected me growing up, and I'm like, man, I am Mexican, like I'm Mexican enough, and then you go to questioning yourself, like, what is Mexican enough?
Right. Ni de aquí, ni de allá. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's pretty much the running theme here with anybody I have here who's bilingual has to deal with that, right? I always go back. I tell my wife I always go back to that clip from Selena, and Edward James almost like, we gotta be. He's like driving the van and he's talking about las tortillas. He's talking about the music, and And, pretty much, and I felt it. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've traveled as a kid. When I traveled back to Mexico, man, I remember trying to speak Spanish and I would do it, but I knew that I was like, man, I wasn't clicking. Like, my Spanish was whack, and like,
I see it.
it was good enough to be like, academic, but it wasn't like, the rancho, with my people. So, I think I started picking that up as I got older with just like continue to listen to music, media, TV, and then obviously hanging out with more people that speak Spanish as I got older. Then you start picking up little things, little slangs here and there that you
Yeah.
can kind of blend in a little better.
I think in my early 20s, I kind of clicked to me that even like if my cousins from Arizona or my cousins from California would jokingly say like, "Oh, you're the hipster cousin because you live in Portland, you live in Oregon," you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of mentality. When we all go to Mexico, everybody there can tell that
Yeah.
we're not from that area of Mexico. Like, yeah, well, our families are from there, and like, yeah, that's where like our blood comes from. But like, they're speaking Spanish in like a uh,
Dialect. Yeah.
Los Angeles dialect or an Arizona dialect or a Bay Area dialect of Spanish that they're not speaking in Mexico. And so like when we all go down there, people there are, as they say, listos, son listos. Like they know, like, oh yeah, you guys are from the norte, like each
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
every one of you. Like you guys all speak Spanish and you guys can all communicate in Spanish, but we can tell that you guys don't live in this area. That you
But
guys don't.
how can they tell? Because I always thought that I'm like, okay, I know they can tell, but like obviously without us speaking, how can you tell? Like, is it the brands we're wearing? Is it the shoes? Like, what is it,
Yeah, well,
man?
we're not wearing Puma with the Ferrari polos that are skin tight.
There's certain things. Yeah, we're not fitting the description for sure.
No.
No, yeah, because like I would go and I'm like, all right, let's not. What if I just don't speak at all? Like, can I blend in? But I still feel like people are looking at me like, nah, bro, you're not. And I'm like, what you mean? Like, what do you? How can you tell? I'm just walking
Yeah,
through the
I think
street.
I don't know. Like, it's like a pace to it or something. I don't know. There could be like a pace of movement for me. But yeah, it's true. But
I told my wife like we went back in December. We were in Guanajuato, and that's where she's from. Her family's from. And I go there, and obviously they know I'm not from there because I don't have any family in that town, so they know I'm not from there. But like we go to like the city, Leon and San Pancho, and we're going around these cities, and I'm like, people are staring. I'm like, is it me or are people staring at me? And my wife's like, I think they are staring at you. And I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I'm just, what I mean? Like, I don't wear anything fancy. I'm just walking through, I'm very low key, man. You wouldn't know I'm wearing jeans, no, I don't wear fancy shoes, nothing. And I'm just like trying to figure out, are they looking at me because like I'm almost 6 foot tall? Like, I don't know what it is, bro. I'm just always joking with my brother, like, how could they tell that we're not from here, man? I'm not even saying anything. I'm not even
yeah,
talking.
in my parents' rancho, they can tell who I am because I'm 6'2".
Mm.
So I'm pretty tall. It's like that's one thing I get a lot that people say that like what they imagine a Mexican or what they think a Mexican looks like. It's not 6'2". You know what I mean? From what
Even though there are tall ones, there are tall Mexicans,
yeah,
but
there are
yeah.
tall ones, but in their mind they just don't. It's not something that clicks right away. But in the rancho where my parents are from, because they're from the same rancho, and there's like just 2 blocks away. They live 2 blocks away from each other. Um, my mom has a little more lighter complexion, and my dad is just like taller. So they combined, they created me, and then people just know everybody there, and
Yeah,
so
of
like
course. Yeah.
there's this beauty of it when I'm walking, and then they're like, "Oh, eres el hijo de Teófilo,
Yeah.
es el hijo de Lupita," and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah,
sí."
and they click it, and I've gotten like, hey, it's hijo that I'm like, dude, I've been here. I'm only come here a couple times. Like, dang, like you hit it on
Yeah,
the spot. That's crazy, right? How they could do that. This is before social media or anything, but yeah, they will hit it because I look like my mom or like my face, so it's like, oh, and I'm like, okay, but yeah, man. So your family's from Jalisco, right? You said they ended up in Oregon, and you have family in other parts of the United States, right?
yeah. I actually was very fortunate that my dad helped a lot of my aunts move up to Oregon as well once he got settled in, and so I grew up in the same town with like three of my aunts, three of my
Okay.
dad's sisters, and so then it was I had younger cousins as well growing up, and so it was really nice, like cool family atmosphere for whether it was like a birthday or a bautismo or soccer matches. Just wanted to like hang out with family that everybody would get together, and so I didn't realize till I got older how uncommon that was to have like 8 of your cousins all kind of grow up in the same place, and your aunt's all kind of growing up in the same area. And I didn't even realize, number one, I didn't realize how much larger, or how like small, how not having a ton of cousins is like very uncommon. Like I have 100 cousins. I mean, I have a lot. Like,
Well, yeah, because and then our parents come from big family. I'm assuming because my mom's one of 9 and my dad's one of 7. So you put 3, 4 kids each family. You're gonna have if when people say, oh, la pura familia, it's like, bro, that's 100 people like at a wedding. What you talking about? Or
yeah,
more than 100 people. So I didn't have that experience that so much because my parents, when they came over, my dad came very young, close to Sacramento. It's called Yuba City. It's about 35 minutes out. And my mom came to Modesto, California. And so all her family's over there. So we did have our cousins about an hour and something away, but we grew up in Sacramento. So we didn't, there was no one around here growing up. My parents met at Sac State later on in their life. They met it in college, and then they had us. And so we just settled here in Sac since day one. But yeah, man, it's always cool to have that. Like you said, being able to know where you're from, being able to go back. And a lot of my friends that I talk to about this that don't have that, like they're not, a Latino, or they're not Mexican, that they're kind of jealous. They always tell me like, hey man, you're so lucky to know that where you're from, your family is from, and you're so lucky to be able to go there and actually see it, and I think we might take it for granted, like, oh, dude, everybody goes to Mexico, but not everyone is able to go back to where their family's from, whether their parents or they don't even know sometimes. So it's kind of cool to have that connection with our family, to be able to go back to see where they grew up, and somewhat make some kind of relationship with people that are out there. I know I connect with some of them, via WhatsApp or whatever, maybe Facebook, but it's kind of cool to be like, hey, I have a cousin that lives in Guadalajara, or I have a cousin that lives somewhere else. It's pretty
yeah,
cool.
absolutely, man. I think we went back a good amount of times when I was growing up, and then as I got older, I was there just a year ago in February before the pandemic shut everything down, and like just and I didn't realize that people that I grew up with who were from um, just like one town over, like that some of them haven't been back for, like because no, they don't have papeles or whatever it may be. And I didn't even realize they didn't have papeles because they grew up
Yeah.
just as long as I have in the town, and I thought that they could, and they can't. And those are the things that surprise me, and like you feel bad for them because it is a really beautiful experience when you go back down there. You know what I mean? Like I was there 3 years ago, and then I was there a year ago, and you have people who just they want to say hi, and they want to talk, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm your aunt from this way," or I remember your mom when she was doing this. And it's really just, you feel like there's a part of you there. What I found, even if you're not from, if you don't never lived there, there's definitely like a part of you there, and they make you feel like there is. And it's very homely. The experience I've had with it has been like, this is your place. Even if it's not like my grandparents, even just like aunts, uncles, like or friends of like my parents are just like, hey, you have a place here, you have an area here, this is the way, you're welcome here. This is where you came from in a way. So, don't forget that. I think that's important. And that's something that I've been, as I get older, very fortunate to know that I have, which I think is very cool.
Heck yeah. And I think we even talked about it, like how close, like, your family's town is to my mom's, and like in Jalisco. And, like you said, you've driven by there. And I'm like, well, that's, to me, that's wild because, it's funny. Like we talk about our ranchos that we go back to, and you're like, nobody knows about this place. You know what I mean? It's so tiny,
Yeah.
but then you realize like there are people like, and I've been so weird to just like put the hashtag in or the location Instagram just to see who tags it, and it's like people from LA, people from wherever. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And, it's kind of cool to see that they're all over the place, because obviously it's not like our parents are the only ones that migrated. There's obviously their neighbors did too, and their cousins did too. So, we're all scattered,
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah, it's wild. Like, yeah, when I went to your area, my uncle was driving by, and he stops at my aunt's house, and he tells my cousin and I, "Hey, voy a los toros. Do you guys want to come?"
Mhm.
And my cousin and I are like, "Sure." He's like, "All right, be back here. I'll be back here in an hour and a half." So he takes us, and we're just driving past Cocula, which is kind of like the main town in the area we're from,
Yeah.
and there it's still like mountainy. You can just see the mountains everywhere, and you keep going, you can go past that, and it's just like it looks like jungle after that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you're like, where am I going? You have to like, I always joke, you have to get lost to get there. You know, you're getting lost for sure.
Everything's deserted, and I'm just
Yeah.
like watching because I'm used to the mountain. You still, whether you're in Guadalajara or you're just going out of it, there's still all these mountains around. You're going to go over them, and you're going all through these peaks and valleys. And then, yeah, as we go past Cocula and we go like we're a half an hour out and just start going, you just nothing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, my uncle just takes a left, and we go down this big freaking like
Yeah.
to the
It's scary. Yeah.
village, and then we stop at this plaza, and then everybody just tends to know everybody knows my uncle. Everyone's like, hey, sit down here. They come, they bring us each like a plate of birria. There's like a banda playing, and then they just bring over just a bottle of tequila for us, and then like beers and stuff. And then they go, hey, when you guys are done, just go over there where those photos are gonna be. You can bring the bottle. They have little stickers on there so people know that this was bought for this event and stuff.
It's part of the thing. Yeah.
It was a wild time. It was really cool. But yeah, you make a really good point, just like how without even knowing, you can just find people from that area. You know what I mean? Like I was at a bar like a year and a half ago, just having a drink and chilling, and then this guy sits next to me. We're talking, and we're like, "Oh yeah, where are you from?" And I know an accent. He's like, "Oh, I'm from Mexico." And you're like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, what part?" They're like, "Jalisco." And you're like, "Oh shit. Oh, me too, Jalisco." And he's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Well, yeah, what part?" He's like, "Ameca." I'm like, "Oh, Cocula." He's like, "Oh man, we're like freaking half an hour away, just like right there." Yeah, it's just crazy how those small connections are. You can make them, especially like in Portland. You asked earlier about what's the kind of vibe in Portland. It's the widest metropolitan in the country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's the widest. A lot of white people, and I believe so. It's about with the like metropolitan area in general. It's about like probably a little over 1 million or something. I think. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, there's very rarely Mexicans in the city or African Americans in the city, and it's just very very white. You know what I mean? Like just that's the easiest way I can put it. Very very white. You have to kind of start going. You got to go out to the suburbs, kind of, and like very out of the burbs to start getting into other parts where it's more diverse. Just like recently I was in San Diego, and just the difference of how the difference of just African Americans and Mexicans or Hispanics and Asians is just there compared to Portland. It's night and day.
Yeah. No, and like when you said like Chicano too, I was like I'm gonna be honest, I always thought Chicano was like, to me, I always think of somebody in California, family from there. So when you say Chicano, I'm like, okay, I didn't realize, obviously it's more than that, but to me, like, I know you're saying it's a little bit different. Well, I think the reason it's also a little bit different in like you say California, Arizona is because we use this little thing like, oh, this used to be Mexico. We use that like in our head. It's like, nah, bro, so it's normal for us to see like every other person is, of Mexican descent or, Latino descent. You're like, oh, okay. But, you go to a place like Oregon, which, it wasn't Mexico before. So you're like, oh, okay, it's a little bit different, right? You're trying to gain ground there. You know what I mean? But Mexico, we're just trying to gain it back, slowly, but it's going to take forever. But yeah, man, I like that, we have that connection. Like you said, you see people, you're like, wait a minute, where are you from? And I remember, it's a quick little side story. One time we were in the Estadio Azteca watching the game, and the guy sitting right next to us, he wasn't from my town, but he was from my wife's town. And we were talking to him, and it was just like crazy. Like, dude, like what? Like in the Ciudad de Mexico, which is like, pretty far away. And at this game, it's just like the timing is so weird. And I've even ran into people in Estadio Azteca in Mexico that are from SAC that I know. Like I know them personally, but I didn't know they were going, and it's like, whoa, what are you doing here, man? And like, so it's that crazy. And I remember one time I was even in Zamora, which my dad's from Zamora, Michoacan. So I was literally in El Mercado, and the guy tapped me in the back of my shoulder, and he used to referee my games here in Sacramento. He's like, hey man, I know you. And I'm like, dude, like what the heck is going on? So you don't even know, like a lot of these people that your neighbors around, it's like, we're from the same parts in Mexico too. It's so crazy how you can just run into people. It's a cool feeling for sure. Like, oh man, you're here too. So anyway, that's cool, man. So kind of tell me about the soccer thing, man. I know you probably got the passion, from your family, right? You probably like got into it. I don't know can you kind of tell me a little bit about that, the soccer ties in your family and what that means to you and why you want to continue to be in it?
Yeah. So I actually grew up playing. My brother was the one who grew up playing soccer from like a really little age. I grew up playing basketball, and I played like I did like traveling basketball, AAU for a little
Hmm.
bit, and then I decided to, and I played soccer as well growing up, but my focus was basketball. And then my dad and I decided like, oh, why don't you play soccer half the time and basketball half the time? Because I was also doing like baseball a little bit too, and you know, and then I thought I was gonna play soccer just to keep me fresh for basketball. And my brother was a forward and I was a goalkeeper. So I grew up just because I played goalie just because my brother
Practice on you.
needed someone to shoot on. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like me and my brother, except, I was the one shooting on him and back and forth. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. And the passion actually came from my uncles, like the ones my aunt's husbands, the one I mentioned that were all around from us, because they were the ones who really followed it and really played it and really um, lived it and breathed it. My dad liked it, but my dad was more of a vaquero, more of like he loves riding horses. He loves like the ranch life, and he loves like
Jaripeo.
yeah, he loves all that. And so it was really I was I was really with my uncles, like being with them and watching them and playing with them, that like it kind of got the itch from there too. And from that, and then I was able to continue playing, but continue progressing, and played club soccer up in Portland, and we did traveling. And I was in high school and we did a lot of traveling there, see a lot of like different parts of the country that way from the club team we were at. And then played some college as well. And after that, I coached for like 6 years, and that was one of the ways I wanted to stay connected. And I gave back and give back to coach at the high school I played at, and coached with like people I grew up with. And I was just I loved staying with it because it's allowed me to stay connected to Mexico through World Cups or just Atlas or anything like that. I think it's really, and so one of the great ways to stay connected to Mexico. And I've also found it's a great way to kind of like learn about other cultures. Whether it's the connections we have through the love for soccer, or just making a connection like, oh, this team is kind of like is similar to this team in your country.
Mm.
The Celtic of Scotland, or like the Chivas of Mexico, like these kind of things. And it's allowed me to see parts of the country. It's allowed me to meet people from other parts of the world, and I think that's really important. The connection it brings to you. I think too many times we get like separated by things and the differences. So food, drink, music, sports really allows people, if they want to connect, and the joy, and it allows, I think, gives people a way, and especially I think men, it allows guys to express themselves in an emotion in which I think I sometimes, maybe the generation below us and our generation struggled with how to express emotion in a way that,
Frios, man. What the? Yeah. He's cold.
Yeah. So those are the things why I've enjoyed it, and why I want to keep having a part of it, keep having a part. And whether it's soccer or another sport, I think there's connections, and you can make parallels between soccer and other sports when it comes to make connections of a city, connections of a a culture. I think that's really cool, especially when you look at some of these other the way basketball is here in Portland with the Blazers. It brings the city together. Everybody's in a great mood. Like 2 years ago, they were in the Western Conference Finals, and I remember when
a buzzer beater.
Yeah, so that's that year. But the next series, when it was Game 7 against Denver, it was a Sunday afternoon, and it was like the early game. It was like a 12 o'clock game, and they were down by like 20 in the first quarter, and then they come back and beat Denver in Denver, Game 7. And the whole, I was living like right in the middle of the city at the time, and my roommates and I, you could just every passion, everything, every moment, just kind of just going by.
Let it out. Yeah.
We lived in an area where there was like a couple of bars all around, and you could, when the game was over, you could just hear everybody in the streets, everybody outside, just like exciting. And then there was a buzz every game day where people were out, people were excited about it. It was just really brought the city together in a way that
good distraction, man. It's a good distraction from other things, and good way to come together. I can't share the same because I'm a Sacramento Kings fan, so I don't have too many stories. I don't have too many stories to tell you about that. I do have, we came together to be, I do remember Game 7 vividly, losing to the Lakers in 2001, which is 20 years ago.
Right before the series before the year before that in 2000, the Blazers lost to the Lakers in a Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals
with Pippen, right?
Yeah, when they were up by like.
Yeah, that was bad. That one, you're right. That one was pretty bad. But this one was bad too. But I remember leaving. So Sacramento was a lot different back then. This is 20 years ago. I was 11 years old, and as I go outside after Game 7, I went outside we went somewhere. Dude, the streets were so empty. I have never seen, even though our city's not a huge metropolitan area, probably like Portland is, but we had that same vibe, right? With one team only at the time, just our basketball. Now we have our, our soccer. But I go out there and I'm like, there was no one out there, dude. I've never seen such a ghost town like that like everybody was at home watching this game, and I can only imagine now how it would be. But yeah, you guys have definitely had a little more success than we have. But speaking of, bringing people together and all that, what do you think about I know you talked about Portland Timbers had the most Latinos on the team and your coach is Latino. But how is the fan base, especially in the MLS? Because I talked to you a little bit about it. I was into the MLS when it first started. I was like a Galaxy fan because I'm a big Jorge Campos fan. That's my idol of all time. And, when he was playing for the Galaxy, to me, it was just like the coolest thing. I even played goalie because he did, I was like, I'm going to do both just like him. And I used to love watching him play. And I was into the MLS for for the first 4 or 5 years. And then it got kind of just like, but I want to get back into it. Do you see that, how do you feel about the Latino fan base? Is it there? Is there a disconnect still? I mean, what can you tell me? Because you're in there.
Yeah, I think so. The Timbers have been around now for the MLS, I think 10, 12 years.
Right.
Before that, though, they were around they've been around for like over 40 something years. They were a second division team for a while. But it wasn't something that if you didn't live in Portland, or if you weren't really in the weeds of it, it wasn't something that you were constant of or was in the back of your head.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was never, I never grew up watching being a Timbers fan. None of us on our soccer team grew up being a Timbers fan or anything like that. It was only, I think, after they became an MLS team that I think it garnered much more attention, and it got you. And one of the things they did was they essentially not bought out, but they kind of formed all the club teams in the Portland area area instead of, they all were called Timber something. So
I've seen that. I've seen that online. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but these clubs aren't connected to each other. They're still separate clubs, but they all just happen to have the
branding
under there. So the one I played for growing up was called Westside Metros, and now they're just called Westside Timbers.
I've heard of them. Okay, yeah. I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of guys played professionally from them. So
okay.
And some of them my old teammates. So shout out to Eric Hurtado, shout out to Danny Mwanga. But there's a couple of guys, and so there's another one called Eastside Timbers. So there's no connection between them. They're all just the same. They're all different clubs, all ran by different people, but they're all just happen to be under the Timber moniker. And then they I think that probably helps them with recruiting or scouting, and keeping an eye on everything and having kind of their thumb on the nail of youth soccer.
Well, it's all Oregon, right? So they don't have to really compete for players. Yeah. You only have one team in Oregon. Yeah, California is like a bloodbath,
You have one team. You have two. You have University of Portland and Oregon State University that have programs at the Division I level. So U of O doesn't even have one. So they kind of keep their thumb on that, and then they're allows them the ODP, all these things, that
funneling.
Keep an eye on it and keep a thumb on it. They have a program. The Timbers do have a program, I think, for the Latin fans, or try to make the Latin connection. It's, again, because Portland is it's so white that it's hard for, I think, at times for it to feel authentic. But they definitely try. The stadium itself, the fan base itself is awesome. I think when Latinos go there to watch it, it's not because there's this pride of the connection to when I go to Timber games to watch the games, I'm going there because I like watching professional soccer, and it's a very cool atmosphere. It's 18,000 people, and it's sold out every time, so it creates a beautiful, awesome atmosphere, and fans are jumping, and it's cool. And
they got the chainsaw, they're cutting down that log and stuff. That's cool. That's cool.
all that, and the stadium is downtown, right in the middle of the city.
That's cool.
And so the whole area is really, it's an exciting thing. And I know for myself, when I go, I don't go because like I have some, I'm like, oh man, look, I'm connected to it because there's like Latinos on it. I'm going, that's not, I don't get that feeling from the Timbers. My feeling there is like, oh, it's a professional team in Portland. It's cool. Like they have a great product. They do a great job.
It's a good time. Yeah, it's
It's a good
soccer.
time.
They're
Like
gonna score goals.
when they won the MLS Cup a couple of years ago, it was, people. It wasn't the way I think it was for Portland or for the Blazers. I don't think it grasped the whole city in that way, but it definitely got places in the city and the niches of it, and everybody who was Timber fans really got into it. And same thing with the Thorns, the women's team. They have a great.
Yeah.
They're a sister brother clubs. They're owned by the same guy, so there's a connection between the two, and so that really they help each other. Or when the women's league started off, that connection to the Timbers, I think really helped just kind of bring everything together, and that's been very cool to see.
They play in the same park too, the same stadium.
Yeah, they have the same park. Yeah,
that's tight. I know because right now I don't know if you heard. I mean, it's not a soccer podcast, but it's definitely I definitely always talk about soccer here, but which is something I got brewing, man, for the future. I definitely have a soccer idea going forward, but Sacramento, I don't know if you saw, like they missed their payments. Our like supposedly owner, he backed out, so our whale didn't come through. And we had a women's league coming too, right? So they were going to do the little. I think they're going to. Sacramento's definitely been trying to copy the Portland and Seattle way of like, let's start in the USL, win the USL, get the support, and then move up. And we did it. The first year that we had a USL, we won the championship. The first year, and so everyone's like, "Oh, we're doing this." The Timbers did it, right? The Sounders did it, but we definitely can't compare really too much with Seattle because Seattle's a way bigger city and has a lot more resources. But Portland, I think Portland and Sacramento can kind of look at each other and be like, "Oh, we're similar. We have an NBA team, and that's it." You know what I mean? And we could copy their model. And like you said, we're putting the stadium in downtown. And so right now it's kind of sad right now because we're trying to figure out who's going to come and invest. But that women's game is growing, right? It's growing. It's like, and I always hear about the Thorns too because the branding they have and everything I just see on social media. And the women's game is just so popular here, because obviously they're winners. The U.S. women win, and they blow people out, so people can get behind that really easily. And kind of speaking about the MLS, like I feel like here they try to have the. I mean, like here's a different graphics, different. It's definitely different than in Oregon. So we definitely do have a following, and San Jose has a following, right? They have Almeida as their coach. They're not dumb. They know what they're doing, right? Yeah. They're bringing in, the trophies. They're bringing in, Alanis. They have like 3-4 Chivas players. They know what they're doing in the Bay Area. LA obviously knows what they're doing. Chicharito on one side of the freeway and Vela on the other side. So they know what sells. They know what's going to bring at least somebody to come watch. And I think Sacramento's kind of a mix. I don't think they're going to have that kind of budget to be bringing a player like that, but they're definitely going to. They do have, like right now we have like the supporters group. They have a regular one, the basic, the real one, and then they have like this little side branch, a Spanish one, right? I think their name's even in Spanish. I think it's like Banda del Puente. We go off the bridge that we have. So it's kind of like this. They're trying to have it, and they do their tailgates, But I don't know if you've ever been to a Mexico game or Atlas game. Obviously the environment around that is way different than the MLS game. The following. I don't know. Have you ever been able to go to one of these pro games?
Yeah, I've been in Mexico game when they've gone out to Seattle. I've been there like 3 times now when they played at the Seahawks Stadium.
Right.
And yeah, I mean it's an incredible. I mean it's a fiesta. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
It's completely different than a Timbers. Like a Timbers thing, you get there 2-3 hours before the game, and you kind of go to the bars and the pub. Especially because where it's located, there's no parking really for tailgating.
Oh, okay.
We happen to have a really good public transit system here in Portland, and 2 trains go right by drop you off like right at the stadium.
That's cool.
And then, like three trains will drop you off like right at the Moda Center where the Blazers play. You know what I mean? So it's like right in the center for that. But over at CenturyLink for the Mexico games, they have like an actual like huge party.
Yeah, they got the Fiesta, Home Depot Fiesta, all that. Yeah.
All the posts going on and just music bumping, all that stuff. Yeah, it's a completely different atmosphere. During World Cup time or whenever it's a Mexico like Gold Cup final or everything like that. I mean, you go to the bars to watch these games, and I liked it because you get there early and you start seeing the same people over and over, the same
Yeah.
people who you don't know, you don't have any real relationship with them, but you guys are all there to watch the same team, and you're like, all right, same time in like in a couple days, yeah, and you guys form this thing, and it's wild how people you don't know just all of a sudden familiar like that through an
Yeah,
experience
it's
like
that.
that.
Yeah, you start bonding. Like I said, that you have that little connection, and I even got to the point that I would go to the Bay Area a lot for the selección. They would come. They would play in the Bay Area a lot, like either Oakland, San Jose, or even Santa Clara, or they were playing in San Francisco. And I would go a lot. I'd go every single year, and you start, like you say, you start seeing groups of people. Like, oh man, I don't know where they're from, but I've seen them before. You know, they come and bring the tents, and the tailgate is crazy.
Yeah.
I even been. My friends and I have been. We went to Vancouver to watch Mexico Canada, and I was like kind of shocked, but I guess they told me, everybody that was showing up was from Seattle. A lot of Mexicans were coming from Seattle. That was pretty fun that night, and that day was pretty cool to see that. But yeah, man, just this is, I think it's just like trying to like get that connection. I feel like when we go to these games, I know we're only in the USL, so we just watch USL games, but we see like it's just different, right? Like when we first started going, we would start, you get up and want to yell at the ref, and then you realize that no one around you did that. So you're like, okay, dude, like we don't want to look like those people. But they'll bring they brought Atlas to play them. They brought Pumas. They brought, Chivas to play. So, you get the different crowd there, and you could definitely see like the vibe is way different. But when it's a USL game, let's just say they're playing the Richmond Kickers or whatever, it's way different. Like the referee, people are like, no one yells. No one's like, I don't know. It's just way different. You got to be quiet. You got to sit there. It doesn't have that same vibe as when you go to it's very more, it's definitely more family friendly probably. But there's a good support though. There's a big group of kids that are going, and there's a big group of support that's, they're getting. Obviously we're trying to go MLS. So we'll see. Like, I think the MLS, I just always felt like the MLS should do, you know, I was talking to this. I was actually featured on another podcast. It's a Liga MX podcast. Shout out to them, Liga MX podcast. And we talked about it, how Spanish media, and you're in the media, so you can kind of tell me, Spanish media has always, you see on Univision, they always put the US games on too. They always talked about US. They've always done the MLS, but I don't see the vice versa. I don't see the English media ever really trying to like take the fans towards the Mexican soccer. I don't know why the disconnect's there.
No, so quickly about like at a Timbers game, there's definitely like it's called a Timbers Army, and they have a whole section behind one of the goals, and it's standing only, you know what I mean? Like you have to get there, like people will camp out a day before to get their tickets, because they're not assigned seats, so you have to get there early.
General seating, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like general seating. So people will like camp out like a day or two before and just have their spots there because they want to get the best spots. And they're chanting all day. They have specific chants. They have specific things that they do. So it's really cool atmosphere. I mean, I think to go back to your point about the American media not giving the Mexican League the proper love, I think yes, and so I saw that too, and that's why I started to do my writing in English and to do speaking about Mexican soccer in English, because there is that disconnect. I think part of it is the Liga MX doesn't help themselves in the way they have their TV deal structured, that it's all independent by each team. So that makes it harder for you to, it doesn't make sense a lot for ESPN to buy a packet of just one team when you're getting 14 games, because you can only do the home games.
Right.
So
I never thought about that.
So you're only getting 14 of those
games. You can get like Puebla games. Like,
yeah. It only makes sense if it would only make kind of sense if you're getting America or Chivas, if we're being honest, because of how large of a popularity they are compared to the rest of the teams in the Liga MX.
I never thought of that. That's a good point. I never thought of that.
And also, if they're playing a game, if it's in the fall and they're playing games on a Saturday, you're not going to give up that TV time on ESPN for competing not only with other sports, but with the same game, but in Spanish, when you can show like Georgia against Alabama and for college football,
some baseball, some playoff baseball, and definitely some baseball, and NBA.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the biggest hurdle is the TV package that each team in Liga MX has, and then can you find enough viewership in English for these teams? I think that's why the EPL does pretty well
It's in the morning.
mornings.
It's in the morning.
You can get games in on the West Coast at 4 a.m., 7 a.m., 10 a.m., and then get the rest of your day started. And I think, they have tried a little bit with the Mexican national team to try to get.
They're on ESPN for a bit. Remember that?
They were on ESPN, and then they were on Fox Soccer as well for a bit. And I think they just kind of stopped showing them, probably for the same reason they're saying, because Univision Telemundo do fantastic. You know what I mean? When you look at the ratings every week of the highest grossing soccer matches, 5 of the 10 are always Liga MX games. You know what I mean?
Even sports period, not just soccer. They just beat a bunch of sports. Yeah, period.
Especially in soccer, when there's so much when they talk about the population or the popularity of soccer in the United States, they talk about the EPL, how well that's been for NBC and all that, and how MLS grows a little bit, and the women's game. But they never talk about just the popularity of Liga MX. Even in week after week, they have 5 of the 10 games of the.
That's what I'm saying. I feel, that's what I'm saying. Like we don't. There's no love going that way. Like, I get the TV deal. Like you said, I didn't think about the daily, like the schedule you're talking about. And you're saying that, like, oh, the popularity of this, and it's like, bro, there's a league right here. And for a long time, I mean, when Klinsmann was the coach, there was what I was just talking about yesterday with my friend. There was a lot of American U.S. players playing in Mexico at the time. There was Beasley and a bunch of guys in Tijuana. There was a lot of guys playing, Ventura Alvarado. There's a lot of players that played. Michael Orozco. They had a cool little 6-7 guys that were playing in La Liga MX. And so it's like, even the national team was valuing that the player plays in Mexico over like a guy who was playing in the Galaxy, So it's like there has to be, I don't know, there's something there. Like you said, I know the TV deal is all whacked out, especially, like you said, in Mexico, they don't consolidate that. They make everybody just do their own thing and fight for their own money. And which I like that too. I do like that they give everyone their own opportunity to do what they can. But like you said, it could hurt them on the global stage for sure.
I think that's been the biggest problem for them on the global stage, is because now it's harder for people in Holland or Italy or whatever to catch Liga MX games if they can't all be on Sky Sports or whatever the package is. If they can't just turn on at night or in the morning there'd be a game, it makes it much difficult for them. But I think another part of it, which I think the Mexican Federation, Mexican Soccer has did to themselves, is they haven't shown to who's ever buying like soccer in the United States that there's money to be made for Mexican soccer in Mexico, because the Mexican national team plays so many games in the United States, and then they see that they can play Guatemala in San Francisco and
Denver.
Denver, there's going to be 40,000, 50,000 people, and they're selling the tickets at $170, and they can't. And then that's all that money. That's all it is. And they see that, and then that's why Mexico doesn't play friendlies in Mexico, because even if they do go to the Azteca and they get 90,000, which I think is where it's capped at right now. It's not 100,000.
Yeah, it's like high 80s. Yeah, high 80s.
Yeah, high 80s. They can't sell those tickets at 3,000 pesos. That's not the price that a family in Mexico can afford.
No.
So I think that's kind of one of the problems. I think there's journalists that do a good job talking about Mexican soccer. I know Tom Marshall was like fantastic.
I met him a couple of times actually when I've been traveling.
Yeah. I met him at a Timbers game. He sat right next to me, and then we hung out. We talked a little bit, and he's an awesome guy, super nice guy. And I think there is that, but I think when you talk about, TV deals and things like that, the Mexican Federation kind of did that to themselves, where they're like, well, we do everything here to make the money. Why would the United States be like, well, if they're doing everything here, why would we want to go over there or do something over there?
Yeah. No, you're right. I never thought about that. I've always kind of said, like, why not? But now I'm totally like, my eyes are totally opening up to that. And like you said, I just talked about this too. Like, they could bring Mexico versus Iceland U20 in Charlotte, and there's gonna be people there. So I think also it's just priorities, right? They're like, okay, they don't prioritize maybe having the English media because they have such a big Spanish media already doing it, here in the United States. Like you said, they're already on Univision, Telemundo, Unimas, whatever it may be. so they don't really need to. They probably don't feel like they need to be on NBC Sports. They don't see that need.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a market for it. 'Cause I think we talked about it when you grow up speaking English and Spanish. I think there is a market for it. But the question is, are the announcers gonna be? Are the announcers, because it's so hard. You're not gonna have time to get it right, unfortunately, if they do something like that, right? Because right away, if it's not an attractive product, either whether it's visually or whether it's audio, you don't like the announcers, whatever it is, they're gonna switch back to the other one. You know what I mean? Even I personally don't like Bracamontes. I don't like his style of calling games, and I've kind of gotten pretty bored
El
with
profe?
Univision guys for a while. I've been listening to them since I was like 10.
Yeah.
They show the Toluca Puma games in the morning, but like,
Well, Pumas games period put me to sleep, but that's a different story.
but yeah, there is kind of like familiarity to that I think people constantly go back to.
Yeah, and then our uncles and our quote unquote, I mean our uncle, I'm saying people older generation, they're not gonna watch it in English. They're not going to do it. So I mean, I guess we're trying to like feed it to the other. I guess I'm trying to sell this to a non-Mexican person. That's what I'm trying to do, But then again, they have to find that connection too, because then they're going to have the same issue that I think maybe our friends have with watching the MLS, right? So it could be the same thing. Was like, okay, I'm gonna turn the TV on, and okay, there's no one here that's even plays for who's even from United States, whatever it may be. So they might not see that. I don't know, but that kind of takes us back to what we were talking about with the World Cup, and you were saying, you got in the interview, you talked about. Mexico only got 10 games, but I think that you can kind of tell me what you think about that. I think definitely that comes down to, because I was talking to my friend, I was like, bro, wouldn't you, if you're coming from like, let's say you're coming from Italy, right? You're coming to watch the World Cup. Wouldn't you rather go to Mexico and like have a great time, or would you rather go to the United States? And I mean, I guess we're speaking on a bias because, we're from Mexico. Like, well, we can have a good time in Mazatlan, Cancun, whatever. We can go all these places. But, I look at it, and we look at it differently, but the FIFA is talking money. FIFA's talking dollars, right? So if you tell them, where can we get dollars for a game, like you said, they're going to want to put the World Cup in the United States, right? Because a World Cup in Mexico, you could do all the 64 games in Mexico. Like, you're right. People will go. People will support it. They've done it before. They were the first country to have 2 World Cups. I know Germany already did it now. Brazil has Brazil done it? Yeah, Brazil did it twice now too. So we were the first one to do 2 World Cups, really, close to each other, Olympics and everything in a quick span. And Mexico's definitely updated their transportation and their stadiums by then. So obviously they could do it again. But the issue is when you go head to head with the United States for a bid, you're not going to win. So I think U.S. just kind of give them like, hey, bro, like just help us on this and we'll do this all together. Because other than that, it was going to be head to head and Mexico was going to lose, I think. It came down to dollars.
I think when it comes to the dollar sign, yeah. And it's funny because in 86, Mexico wasn't supposed to host the World Cup.
Right. It was backup, right?
To Colombia. And then they switched it there, like not last minute, but they switched it with a time where like they were able to show like, hey, we can do something quickly. The other problem, or I don't know if it's a problem, but the other aspect of it that's interesting is that if a game isn't at the Rose Bowl, or if the game is at Soldier Stadium in Chicago, if the game is in Phoenix and it's Mexico playing, it doesn't matter. It's going to be 80% Mexicans, and it's going to be the party.
Right.
Because they show that in the Gold Cup. They show that in the World Cups in Russia, and they show that in the Brazil. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter where you put these tournaments. It doesn't have to be Mexico, because regardless, Mexicans are going to show up.
Right.
And I think that's the other part that the U.S. national team, or the federations, when they did these bids, the U.S.
Probably told them that, yeah.
Probably just like, yeah, and it's something Mexico showed them, right? Like, because they have the Gold Cups in the United States every year, and there's a reason they play. Mexico is the only one that plays all their games in football stadiums, where other groups will play in the group stages.
MLS stadiums,
MLS stadiums, but the Mexico group, they're playing all those in football stadiums, and there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? And that helps the Mexican Federation popularity and the money and everything. But then when it comes to something like this World Cup bid, this is where the U.S. Federation and the people working with it, joint bid, goes, well, you guys look at the success you guys have had here. You guys know the success. We know the success. We're gonna give you 10 out of like, because we know like how important Azteca Stadium is when it comes to soccer, and World Cup.
Yeah.
We know it's important to have one in
Guadalajara,
Guadalajara because the second biggest.
Monterrey.
We know
Right.
how it's important to have Monterrey as well because these are big cities. But why would we give you something, give you more games or anywhere else when you guys know and we know that even wherever you guys play, it's going to be the majority is going to be Mexican, and the majority is going to, and it's going to be, overwhelmingly Mexico because everybody follows it, everybody goes for it, and there's a reason why year in and year out the Mexican national team or tops jersey sales, regardless of whether it's a tournament year or it's not. You know what I mean? World Cup years, you'll see U.S. jersey sell well. You'll see Brazilian jersey sell well. Every year, Mexican
Mexico
national team
jersey. Yeah.
just sells. Mexican products sells.
So I mean, obviously they're making that connection. I mean, obviously Canada and US have a good tie because they let the Canadian teams play in the league. And they keep saying they're trying to join leagues, but we know that's not going to happen because there's too many other things that come into play with that. But you know, I think that pretty much is going to seal the stamp now, and Mexico's never going to host another World Cup ever again by themselves because of this. Because before, they were the only soccer nation around here, and U.S. was playing in college stadiums. They played the last World Cup. They're playing at Stanford. They're playing at places that had no infrastructure for soccer, like the way we're used to it now. So now that U.S. has, you're right, they have the MLS specific stadiums, but those are not going to be used in the World Cup. They're going to be using all the football stadiums, because we're going to need, these big, I mean, they might use some MLS stadiums, but most of them, Atlanta's a football stadium, even though they play MLS there. But a lot of the other ones, they play, if they're a football team there, that's what they're going to use because
But
the popularity.
They built Atlanta to also host soccer matches. They built the stadium.
Right. They built it like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
it's still a football stadium.
It's a football stadium,
Yeah.
but I think they specifically made adjustments to the stadium that allows it to be enjoyed
Soccer friendly.
Right. As a soccer stadium as well. Not just it's not just like they're putting a football team or soccer team on there to play.
Field.
I think they made adjustments to the infrastructure to be so you can actually enjoy it. Not unlike the Revolution that play at where the Patriots play, and they're just putting a soccer team there.
Right. I mean? Did Minnesota do the same thing? I don't know if Minnesota United plays in the football.
Minnesota's its own specific
stadium. Okay.
Yeah.
But so just looking at that, like you said. So now I think this is it. We're never going to have a World Cup of Mexico again, especially not by themselves. I think a joint bid is obviously smart because then you're bringing in businesses from Canada that are going to sponsor, and obviously businesses from Mexico they're going to obviously be a part of this TV deal. It's going to be a huge event. I'm super excited for it, man. I know it's still 5 years away. We still have another World Cup in the way, but it's going to be cool to kind of get to that point. And, hopefully by then I get a media pass or something. I can go check that out. But kind of talk to me, man. What have you been doing over this pandemic, man? We kind of talked about, I know you got the salsa thing going, so I know it's not the dance, but the food. So kind of tell me what's up with the salsa, man.
Yeah. So a couple months ago, I, decided I needed to do something to kind of get me out of this pandemic funk. So I started, I've always cooked, especially, I cooked a lot with my mom, just cooked a lot, especially without having sisters. She didn't really, the old Mexican hierarchy of things. I learned how to cook from my mom, and
yeah,
I always enjoyed having friends over or just having people over and cooking for them, and so I said, I told some of my friends around, like, hey, if I give you some jars of salsa, would you spread the love out to all your friends and stuff? And that's how it kind of started. I made 3 types of salsas: a verde, a roja, and then a peanut one. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And they showed their friends, and then and then we had this little Instagram page, and then it kind of spread like that. And then a couple of businesses here in Portland, some popular ones, shout out Fire on the Mountain. They're like, hey, we're looking for somebody to make some pico for a dish we have, because we don't need it a lot, but we just need some, you know what I mean? Because we're not a Mexican restaurant, we're a wing spot. But we need some nachos and stuff. And he ordered some salsa and liked it, and then asked about this. So that's it. And it's kind of grown to that, where I make salsas for some restaurants. I make salsas for people.
Okay.
And, in December, I donated half of my sales to Active Children Portland, which is a nonprofit that helps the kids in the inner city of Portland, the underprivileged kids in Portland, helps them with tutoring, and it helps them as well with physical activity.
Nice.
So, and I gave half of my sales to that. And then I also serve on the board of that nonprofit as well. And they do is, before the pandemic, it was tutoring 4 days a week for 1 hour, and then 1 hour of soccer activity. So then after the pandemic, we've been trying to find different ways of how to make sure we continue to reach these kids, both in tutoring, because, as an educator, you will know that it's the haves and have nots have grown larger during this pandemic,
Oh
because
yeah.
kids don't have internet access now. They don't have their if the main source of internet access was the school, some of them don't have the extra meal that might be guaranteed for them. Just notebooks, just things like that would usually come from just being in the classroom is gone for them. And so we've been trying to find ways to do that. So I've donated some of my salsa from that as well to that as well to help out.
That's cool, man. There's a bunch of things right there. Number one, the entrepreneur in you to like just get that going. Like you said, it's something that connects you with your mom, and like the cooking you do at home. And so like it's something you actually like to do. It's not like you just set out to make this money. It was just something you just started doing because you already did it. You were eating, and obviously we like to cook, and that's definitely a Mexican thing for sure. Is making home food, right? Homemade food, because siempre hay frijoles en la casa. Mama would always tell me, like, hey, can we go to McDonald's? I have frijoles en la casa. Like, come on, man. I know there is. I want McDonald's. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool to have that. And now that you even have a bigger purpose, giving back to, like you said, the students that need it, the students that are being connected with you through this nonprofit. And I tell you, as a teacher, it's tough, man. Like one thing is having that connection with them, being able to see them, visually. And now like with the Zoom thing, a lot of kids don't want to turn their camera on, right? And they don't have to. And so because of that, it's like, I'm not trying to make them put their camera on to make them uncomfortable. It's kind of like, bro, I want you to look me in the eyes and know that I'm here for you. I got you. We're gonna go get through this. And it's really hard to get connected with some students that don't log in. Like you said, they could have an internet issue. You start realizing, we all got caught here just not ready, unready. And you'd be amazed at how many people don't have internet, and you're kind of like, what? Like, what you mean you don't have, and it's like 2 years ago, I didn't have internet in my apartment, just because, we were just trying to save up to get a house, and we just didn't have internet. We used our phones. And so I can kind of see why a family wouldn't have it, or just different reasons why. They just, priorities, or just, necessities, resources. So it's kind of cool that you're able to connect with them using soccer as well, which obviously it's one of your passions. So, big shout outs to you too. It's not just the teachers, but there's a lot of other people that are doing it. Counselors, man, support staff, social workers that are definitely checking in with kids and trying to get through this pandemic, which we're really close, man. I think we're probably at game 7 now. We're almost past this, I think, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. And yeah, I mean, it was important, because when they asked me to join you, I did the research, and it is important because I know in Portland, the majority of the kids we help are African American and Hispanic kids, because they're the most underserved communities here in Portland. And
everywhere, not just Portland, everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Period.
Yeah, period. And so, the kids who are already in an advantage with like at home, or in general, they're not struggling as much as these kids. And it goes from a self-esteem issue. It goes from building self-esteem, which once you can build that, you can get some physical activity, which is going to stimulate your mind, which is going to help learn in general. There's such a couple years ago, I coached Special Olympics, and helping in Special Olympics, what you see, which I know I learned, which I saw in a smaller scale when I coached high school soccer, but I think it was just magnified more with, in Special Olympics, is how when you put people in a different environment, just being somewhere where it's something different, just for a couple hours, their mind is more activated because their senses are in a new place. So then they're capturing everything. They're learning, and they're trying to pick up every little thing because it's new to them. And
that's cool.
And that's really helped. That's from the studies that we did, and that's helps the kids. It helps their self-esteem, helps their attendance, helps their physical activity, helps them feel better about themselves. All these little things, and it's not, and the physical activity part isn't competitive soccer. It's just to be out there, get moving, to help stimulate the mind and make sure and put them in a place where they don't have to think for a little bit, and without them realizing they're learning something, and it's setting them up also to learn once they go back to doing whatever classwork they need to do. It's not as monotonous anymore because now their mind's a little more fresh too, which is important.
It's big, man, and definitely, like you said, self-esteem and building that social interaction is something the kids are missing today. I asked them, and a lot of kids are like, I can't wait to get back. And you're like, and I joke with them, wait, you want to come back? You're the same one that did, and they're ready, man. They see it. They're like, dude, this sucks. Like this sucks being here. Like, yeah, they're at home or whatever it may be, but it's like, nah, man, they miss that interaction, that growth that they get from other people, just responding and reacting. And like you said, sports also does that for them. So we've been doing our sports on the side. We've been able to do sports even though we're not in school. So kids are coming out, running, doing their thing, and we're actually going to be cleared now to, I think, do some high school sports for a couple of weeks. It's going to be like a 2-week season, but it's something, get the kids out there. And yeah, man, it's great to be able to have that connection, like you said, with everybody, using sports, using everything that we do. And everything goes back to soccer, man. We keep talking about our culture, building up kids, letting them grow as people, whatever it may be. So I'm glad that we have that connection with something. But yeah, man, I really appreciate your time coming on here. I really appreciate you giving me an hour of your pandemic time, to check in with me on the podcast. And hopefully we can continue this relationship so that, if I go out to Portland, you invite me to, try, unos tacos de asada, whatever you guys got out there. And when you come to SAC, you already know we have everything you need. So mi casa es tu casa, man. So, I appreciate your time, bro.
I appreciate you having me, man. It's been good. Yeah. If you make it up here, aquí está tu casa. And yeah, if anybody wants to check it out, it's Ivancito Salsa Factory on Instagram. Check it out there. If you guys also want to check out the nonprofit I help out with, it's Active Children Portland, ACP. If you go on my Instagram, Ivan Sanchez 31, Ivan San 31. Right on the bottom, there's like a little thing if you ever just want to donate some money to help out some kids too. So yeah, in December I was able to fundraise $1,000. Other people were fundraising stuff as well. We were able to donate a lot, but yeah, I was able to donate 1,000 through just selling salsa. So like every little thing helps. But yeah, I mean, as you know, as an educator, yeah, anything to help the kids.
Heck yeah, man. So yeah, man, we'll connect. I'll put all your links up that you just talked about. I'll share that on the episode notes, and definitely pushing you out on Instagram, supporting you on Twitter, and hopefully we can connect again and start this soccer venture that I have an idea of brewing right now. So let's do this.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate that, man.
All right.
Go Blazers.
Arriba Jalisco, man. All right, man.
Arriba Jalisco.
All right, later.
See you, man.